Hey there, folks, what's up? It's your F2P representative, MokzZ Gaming. Today, we've got some exciting news for all you Honkai Star Rail fans out there. The highly anticipated new character, Luocha, has finally arrived. In this video, we'll dive deep and explore why Luocha is undeniably the ultimate healer in the Star Rail universe. We'll break down his insane strengths, discuss why he's worth summoning for, and get into the nitty-gritty of his stats and abilities. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. First things first, let's take a look at Luochas Stats. We're diving deep into his numbers to see just how impressive he is. Now, it's worth noting that Luocha's base speed stat is only 101, and I know a lot of you folks are wondering how high his ATK can go with a full set of level 15 5-star relics. Well, brace yourselves because the answer is mind-blowing. 4845, yes, you heard it right, nearly 5,000 ATK. With such a terrifying ATK stat, you must be curious about how much healing Luocha's skills can provide to his teammates. Well, the answer is a staggering 5,356.6, and let me tell you, in-game testing showed it to be 5360, with an error margin of only 0.06%. Now, this model might not be entirely reliable, but let's discuss whether you're satisfied with these numbers. Leave your answers in the comments section and let me know what you think. Well, it's not actually an exaggeration. This is just the level of achievement for F2P players. Why is that? Well, one important reason is the main attribute of Luocha's chosen relic. It's not just about the ATK percentage, but there's another crucial factor. As an ATK healer, Luocha himself has a base ATK of 756 at level 80. Now, let's put that into perspective. The main DPS characters like Jingyuan and Seal have basic ATK stats of just over 600. Meanwhile, Luocha is already starting off with the highest tier of ATK. It's quite impressive, isn't it? Luocha's light cone, Echoes of the Coffin, also receives a decent boost in basic ATK, reaching as high as 582. As a result, Luocha's ATK, in a dual level 80 scenario, can reach up to 1338. So, with the help of these enhancements, Luocha's ATK naturally gets a significant boost. Luocha's healing capacity is indeed quite abundant, perhaps even slightly excessive. Players can consider adjusting the amount of healing based on their tactical needs and resource allocation for ATK values. In certain strategies, it may be acceptable to allocate fewer resources for healing. This skill itself is one of Luocha's core mechanics. After unlocking the Trace talent, Luocha's skill not only provides healing, but also has the additional effect of removing a debuff from a single ally. This additional effect is identical to Bronia's skill. In Luocha's ultimate, he unleashes an AoE attack on all enemies, dealing damage at a 200x rate. The ultimate itself may not have a high multiplier or inflict significant damage, but that doesn't mean it lacks damage entirely. We shouldn't forget that AoE characters primarily deal damage to multiple targets. When facing 5 enemies simultaneously, Luocha's ultimate can easily hit over 20,000 DMG. This is a noticeable contribution compared to characters like Bailu or Natasha, who have no damage output at all. However, when it comes to DPS, Luocha's ultimate has a clear purpose, stacking Abyss Flower. Abyss Flower is another core mechanic of Luocha. Whenever he uses a skill, activates a skill through talent, or uses the ultimate, Luocha gains a stack of Abyss Flower. Remember these 3 ways, and once Luocha accumulates 2 Abyss Flower stacks, he enters a special domain. Within this domain, whenever our team's characters launch an attack, they receive healing for themselves, and after unlocking the advanced 4-star talent, each attack from our team's characters can also provide healing to their teammates. You can think of Luocha's special domain like suddenly turning on the air conditioning on the battlefield. Teammates feel incredibly refreshed, and with each attack, Luocha diligently serves up the elixir of happiness, allowing teammates to replenish their health. Does this metaphor make it more relatable and easy to understand? This is the level that husband Luocha should have. Luocha's joyful domain serves as both a target healer and an AoE healer, making it extremely convenient. When it comes to healing, there's no need to worry. With Luocha's ATK of 4,000, the healing domain generated can restore around 1,500 HP to our team's characters, depending on the depth of the values. The fluctuation in health can be observed before and after the healing. This showcases Luocha's versatility and effectiveness as a healer. Why do we say there's fluctuation in the healing? That's because Luocha, with 0 limit breaks, naturally provides a fixed amount of healing. However, the 4-star light cone relic, with its different variants, offers varying bonuses to the healing amount. With duplicates, there may be some slight deviations, but in actuality, the healing amount won't have significant deviations. You can refer to this set of data. The healing output of around 4,000 is quite average for a regular player. The healing provided by Trace talent is significantly lower, with each recovery being around 700 points or slightly less. However, considering it's a team-wide healing effect, it's still decent. These data are based on the talents being at level 10. It's worth noting that it's quite obvious. Luocha's joyful domain calculates healing based on each individual attack from the characters, specifically each attack and not each hit. If your character performs multi-hit attacks, it will only heal once. This is different from certain enemies in Honkai Star Rail that can cause multiple instances of healing. Even if a character like Seal inflicts 3 consecutive instances of damage, Luocha's domain will only heal once. However, talents similar to Seal's that generate additional rounds for a second attack can calculate healing for the second instance, because the additional rounds are calculated as additional attacks. The same principle can be applied to other scenarios. Through my repeated testing, I have found that talents from Jing Yuan and Emiko that cause additional attacks can also be considered for healing. However, it's important to note that continuous damage from Welt or Serval's talents, such as electrocution or split damage, cannot be considered as attacks. This is understandable and makes sense in that context. If these effects were considered as attacks, it would completely break the game. You see, some teams have the potential to trigger 4 or 5 different types of damage when the enemy moves even slightly. If the entire team were to suddenly heal 4 or 5 times, then Luocha would become invincible. In addition to that, there are also some special additional attacks, like Bronya's Fourfold, which I tested along with other unique mechanics. When passive abilities trigger a character to counterattack or perform an additional attack, those turns are also calculated as additional attacks, similar to Seal's online turns. It's quite detailed, isn't it? If you appreciate the effort I put into creating this content, please like and subscribe to my channel. It's not too much to ask, right? Apart from the triggering details, let's now move on to discussing the operational aspects in more detail. There are 2 crucial points to note about Luocha. First, during the expansion of the domain, Luocha cannot stack Abyss Flower. This means that if one of your teammates is frozen or imprisoned when the domain expands, Luocha has to use their skill to free them. As a result, this precious opportunity to stack Abyss Flower is wasted. The same applies when the field is set up, and Tianyun receives a couple of heavy blows before Luocha's skill passive triggers. The rare stacking opportunity is also wasted in this case. It's beyond control, so everyone should be mindful of this aspect. Another important point to be aware of is the duration of Luocha's domain. It lasts for 2 rounds, with Luocha himself serving as the dividing line. This means that the domain will only disappear when his second round of actions concludes. Many players might hope for an ideal scenario where the domain ends right when it's Luocha's turn to act, giving him the opportunity to use a skill or even his ultimate seamlessly. However, in practical combat, achieving this is not possible because Luocha's domain disappears as soon as he finishes his actions. If you use a skill before the domain ends, the previous skill won't calculate the stacking of Abyss Flower, so you have to abandon the idea of seamlessly expanding the domain. To maximize the overall safety of the team, it's crucial to utilize Luocha's various mechanics effectively. After briefly introducing Luocha's healing capabilities and game mechanics, let's now discuss the choice of relics for Luocha. When it comes to choosing relics for Luocha's feat slot, it depends on your tactical approach. If you prefer Luocha to have a higher speed, it can be beneficial. However, you should consider the overall composition of your team. If there are other members who can boost speed or provide energy, having Luocha with excessive speed may shorten the duration of his talents, such as the 2-round duration of his healing domain or his ultimate skill's 2-round domain. Ideally, you would want Luocha's turns to come slower for optimal usage. However, his talents have passive triggers that allow him to interrupt and use skills for emergency situations, but there are limitations on the number of turns in which this can occur, so, paradoxically, while Luocha's ultimate skill benefits from not prioritizing speed, his regular skill actually benefits from having higher speed. This contradiction adds an interesting aspect to understanding Luocha's mechanics, and it ultimately depends on your tactical design and preference on how to approach it. Let's talk about the body relic first. Some players may wonder if it's viable to have an ATK main attribute on Luocha's body relic. Well, I can confidently say that it's not a good idea. Even if you equip Luocha with a healing body relic, his attack is already close to 5,000. If you were to switch it to an ATK relic, the increase in his attack would only be around 500, which is roughly a 10% increase. However, the healing output of his skill would decrease to around 4,400. Therefore, prioritizing healing stats on Luocha's body relic is more beneficial for his overall performance. That's right, you heard it correctly. Even though Luocha's attack stat increases with an ATK body relic, the healing output actually decreases. The reason is quite simple. When you switch to an ATK body relic, his attack only increases by about 10%, but a healing body relic at level 15 provides a significant 34.5% increase in healing output. It's clear to see which value gets diluted more in this comparison. You see, when it comes to Bai Lu, choosing a relic that increases his HP gives you some comfort in knowing that he becomes more resilient. However, for Luocha, his ATK stat primarily affects his ability to restore HP to his teammates. So, if his ATK increases but his healing output decreases, the ATK attribute becomes somewhat ineffective. Sure, you You can argue that a higher ATK for Luocha means he deals slightly more damage when he uses his ultimate skill in combat. However, Luocha's damage output is not particularly high to begin with, considering his ATK is diluted to around 10%. So in my opinion, it's not necessary to focus on increasing Luocha's ATK. Just because I mentioned earlier that Luocha doesn't really have any damage doesn't mean his damage output is exceptionally high. Now let's talk about relic sets. After discussing the main attributes of relics, it's worth mentioning that with the 4-piece healing sets, they provide an immediate skill recovery for our team at the start of the battle. However, please note that it's not a continuous healing effect every round, but rather a one-time skill recovery. Therefore, the benefits of these sets are relatively low in terms of sustained healing. So, when it comes to relic selection for Luocha, there's hardly any suspense regarding the choice of body relic. It's recommended to go for outgoing healing and ATK percent as the main attributes, with a combination of 2+2 set pieces. However, the selection of feat relic is the only aspect that may warrant some consideration. Through simple practical tests, my initial hypothesis was confirmed. When teamed up with Seal, Luocha can maintain a lower speed. Let's imagine a scenario where we have a team consisting of high-speed Bronya, Luocha, and Silver Wolf alongside Seal. Apart from Luocha, the other 3 team members are configured for high speed. You'll notice that Seal keeps moving throughout the battle. As your proficiency improves, you'll find that Luocha hardly moves at all. With continuous attacks, the enemy's minions are quickly cleared, and the domain is maintained, smoothly transitioning into the next wave of enemies. Therefore, it's advisable to pair low speed with high speed in this case. The combat system in this game has an interesting aspect. For single-target main DPS characters like Seal, they don't have significant AoE concerns. Moreover, Seal's quasi-AoE effect is achieved through her continuous movement with online talents. This constant movement triggers Luocha's healing every time. The combination of Seal and Luocha can be seen as a perfect match, with Luocha acting as a healing god. During the existence of Luocha's domain, there is minimal pressure on sustaining health. As a result, the demand for talents that specifically cater to healing is naturally reduced. Therefore, having Luocha with low speed in a team with Seal is completely viable and effective. On the other hand, when pairing with slow speed main DPS characters, my recommendation is to use a high-speed Luocha. Equipping speed-focused feat will accelerate the cycling of talents and energy generation. This is because it's extremely difficult for slow-speed main DPS characters to keep up with Luocha's movements. In such cases, it's wiser to focus on increasing the overall team speed rather than relying on Luocha alone to move multiple times while the others lag behind. Prioritizing a team-wide speed boost is a smarter strategy in these situations. To summarize, when pairing with a high-speed, active main DPS character, using a slow-speed Luocha can be a good tactical choice. However, in other situations, it is still recommended to equip SPD feat to create a better survival environment for your teammates. Now let's discuss the selection of planetary sets. Some may wonder if it's necessary to choose energy regen rate to ensure Luocha can use his ultimate frequently. In my opinion, it's not really necessary because Luocha's passive healing, based on my testing, is considered as if he's using a skill directly in combat. Yes, you heard it right. Although it doesn't consume skill points, it still allows him to recover skill energy, so you don't need to worry. If Luocha's talent is triggered during the domain, even though it won't stack Abyss Flower, the energy restoration is still significant and won't go to waste. If you have the exclusive Light Cone, it will further increase Luocha's energy recovery. He can basically ensure having 30 energy every 2 rounds, and when he uses his ultimate, it also restores 5 energy. When you consider all these factors together, you can think of Luocha as a character with a 65 energy ultimate, and for a character with 65 energy, you certainly wouldn't want to prioritize energy regen rate, right? When it comes to Luocha's Light Cone selection, we can simplify it as follows. If you have Echoes of the Coffin, use Echoes of the Coffin. If you're a free-to-play player or don't have Echoes of the Coffin, Post-Op Conversation is also a good choice. It increases energy regeneration rate and outgoing healing when using the ultimate, making it suitable for early-stage F2P players. As for the 3-star Light Cones, you can choose any one without maxing it out to avoid wasting resources. Remember, use what you have and avoid making mistakes. I believe players generally expect to enhance their gaming experience, right? In this regard, Luocha's game mechanics and design certainly fulfilled that task, especially for many players at the moment. Finally, let's talk about Luocha's best team build. In team build, Luocha is a healer in the team. Luocha's healer build is used. Welt is a DPS character with crowd control capabilities. His ultimate skill is able to create a small black hole zone, which can cause enemies to become imprisoned. Imprisoned enemies will have their actions delayed and SPD reduced. Luocha's skill restores HP of allies based on his ATK. Luocha's ultimate dispels enemies' debuff and deal imaginary AoE DMG to enemies. When Stack of Abyss Flower reaches 3, a field is applied on enemy. Allies' HP is restored by attacking enemy with a shield. Silver Wolf's skill has a chance to lower the enemy's quantum RES, causing the enemy's weakness to change to the attribute of her own team. Pella's ultimate skill is capable of lowering the defense of all enemies. In addition, her passive technique allows her to take the initiative in battle by lowering the enemy's defense. Alright, that concludes the overall overview of Luocha. He can provide healing and also has the potential for ATK. If you're a free-to-play player and manage to obtain Luocha, it can significantly boost your gameplay. So, get ready to open your wallet and invest some time. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to get Luocha within 20 pulls. If you enjoyed the content of this video, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for the next video. See you.